This is the true story of what happened at Riverside Medical Center on March 14th, 2018. I'm about to tell you something that will sound impossible, but every word is documented. Every detail has been verified by multiple witnesses. What you're about to hear happened to real people in a real hospital and changed their lives forever. My name is Jennifer Walsh, and I was the night shift supervisor at Riverside Medical Center in Ohio. I had worked there for 12 years and thought I had seen everything. Car accidents, heart attacks, overdoses, nothing surprised me anymore. But what happened that night broke something inside me that I don't think will ever heal. It started like any other Tuesday night. The hospital was quiet, with only the essential. Staff on duty. We had Dr. Marcus Reed in the emergency department, 2 nurses, Sarah Kim and myself, and our security guard, Tom Bradley. The building felt different that night, though. There was something in the air, a heaviness that made everyone uncomfortable. Even the patients seemed restless. Around 10:30 p.m., we received our first patient of the evening. An elderly woman named Margaret Thornton had been brought in by her daughter after collapsing at home. Mrs. Thornton was conscious but confused, constantly looking over our shoulders as if someone was standing behind us. When Dr. Reed examined her, she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "The children are here," she whispered. "They've been waiting so long in the basement. They want to come up now." Dr. Reed and I exchanged glances. We thought it was dementia or maybe the effects of her medication. Mrs. Thornton had no history of mental illness, but elderly patients often became disoriented in hospitals. We sedated her and moved her to a room on the 2nd floor. What we didn't know was that Mrs. Thornton had never been to our hospital before. She had no way of knowing that Riverside Medical Center was built on the site of an old orphanage that had burned down in 1962. 43 children had died in that fire, trapped in the basement when the exits became blocked. This information wasn't common knowledge. It wasn't something you'd find in a Google search or local newspaper. The hospital administration had worked hard to keep this history quiet. Around midnight, our security guard Tom went to do his routine check of the basement levels. We had storage areas, the morgue, and old maintenance rooms down there. Tom was a big guy, former military, not someone who scared easily. He had been doing these rounds for 5 years without incident. But that night, something was different. Tom's radio went silent at 12:15 a.m. Hospital protocol required security to check in every 30 minutes. But when 12:45 came and went with no word from Tom, Dr. Reed and I became concerned. I tried calling his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. The security cameras showed Tom entering the basement stairwell, but then the feeds went dark. Not static or snow, just complete blackness, as if someone had painted the lenses. Dr. Reed volunteered to go look for Tom. I begged him not to go alone, but we couldn't leave the emergency department completely unmanned. Sarah stayed with the patients while I monitored from the nurses' station. Dr. Reed took his cell phone and promised to call every few minutes. He disappeared into that stairwell at 1:10 a.m., and I never saw him again. By 1:30 a.m., I was alone with Sarah and 3 patients, including Mrs. Thornton. I had called the police, but they said they couldn't send anyone until morning unless there was evidence of a crime. 2 grown men don't just vanish, but apparently that's not enough to warrant immediate action. I was terrified, but I had a responsibility to the patients in my care. That's when the power started fluctuating. The lights would dim, then brighten, then dim again. It wasn't like a brownout. It had a rhythm to it, almost like breathing. The backup generators kicked in several times, but each time, the normal power would return within minutes. During one of these power fluctuations, I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of children laughing. Not the joyful laughter of kids playing, but something hollow and echoing, coming from somewhere below us. Sarah heard it too. I could see the terror in her eyes as we both looked toward the floor. The laughter seemed to be moving, getting closer to the stairwell that led to our floor. Mrs. Thornton woke up during this time, and she was completely lucid. She looked at me with clear, frightened eyes and said, "They're coming up now. They've been so lonely down there, and they want us to stay with them. They don't understand that we're different, that we don't belong there." I decided to research the building's history using my phone. What I found in old newspaper archives made everything click into place. The Sunshine Orphanage fire of 1962 wasn't just a tragedy. It was a cover-up. The official report said the children died from smoke inhalation, but witness accounts suggested something more sinister. Several survivors reported that the basement doors had been locked from the outside. Some said they saw staff members leaving the building without attempting to rescue the children trapped below. The fire had started in the basement furnace room and spread quickly through the wooden structure. By the time the fire department arrived, the entire building was engulfed. The children who died ranged in age from 6 to 14. They had been living in terrible conditions, overcrowded and underfed. Many had been abandoned by their families or were orphans from birth. When they died, they had no one to mourn them, no one to remember them. Reading these accounts, I began to understand what Mrs. Thornton meant. These children had been neglected in life and forgotten in death. They were still here, still waiting for someone to care about them, to acknowledge their existence. The hospital had been built directly on top of their unmarked graves, and we had been working above them for years without knowing. Around 3 a.m., the elevator doors opened on our floor, even though no one had called it. Sarah and I watched in horror as wet footprints appeared on the floor, leading from the elevator toward the patients' rooms. The prints were small, child-sized, and left dark stains on the linoleum. We could smell something terrible, the acrid scent of smoke and something else. Something organic and rotting. The temperature in the hallway dropped dramatically. Our breath became visible, and the windows started fogging up despite the fact that it was a warm March night. The children's laughter returned, but now it was all around us, coming from the walls themselves. Sarah grabbed my arm, and I could feel her shaking. That's when we saw them. Shadows at first, moving along the walls in impossible ways. Then more solid forms began to appear. Children in old-fashioned clothing, their faces pale and their eyes hollow. They didn't look angry or threatening. They looked desperate, pleading. They reached out toward us with small hands, and I could hear them whispering, "Please don't leave us alone again." I realized that Tom and Dr. Reed hadn't been taken by force. They had been convinced to stay, to finally give these children the attention and care they had been denied for over 50 years. The children didn't understand death. They just knew they had been abandoned, and they were determined never to let it happen again. Mrs. Thornton appeared in the hallway, walking slowly but purposefully toward the children's spirits. "I know you're lonely," she said to them. "I know you've been waiting. But these people don't belong with you. They have families who love them, just like you deserve to have." She spoke to them like a grandmother would, with patience and genuine compassion. The children gathered around. Mrs. Thornton and I could see them more clearly now. They looked exactly like kids from the 1960s. Old-fashioned clothes, simple haircuts, faces that should have been full of life and joy. Mrs. Thornton took the hand of the smallest one, a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. "I'll stay with you for a while," she said. "You don't have to be alone anymore." The hospital staff arrived with the morning shift at 6 a.m. They found Sarah and me in the waiting room, traumatized and exhausted. Tom and Dr. Reed were discovered in the basement, both unconscious but alive. They had no memory of the past 7 hours. Mrs. Thornton was found in her bed, peaceful and still. She had died sometime during the night, but she had a smile on her face. The official report listed Mrs. Thornton's death as natural causes related to her pre-existing condition. Tom and Dr. Reed were treated for possible carbon monoxide exposure, which the administration claimed explained their memory loss and unconscious state. The security camera malfunctions were blamed on electrical problems, but I know what really happened that night. Mrs. Thornton sacrificed herself to save us, offering these lost children the love and attention they had been seeking for decades. The hospital has been quiet ever since. No more unexplained incidents, no more equipment failures, no more strange sounds from the basement. I believe she's still there with them, finally giving them the peace they deserved. I quit my job the next week. I couldn't continue working in a place where so much pain and suffering had been buried and forgotten. But sometimes, late at night, I think about those children and Mrs. Thornton, and I hope they found the peace that eluded them for so long. Some stories don't have happy endings, but maybe, just maybe, this one does.